Rosalia Bollen is a UNICEF Communication Specialist who served in Gaza. She joins me now from Vataro in Italy. Thanks very much for being with us. So first of all, give us a sense of just how desperate the situation is there for people in Gaza right now. I know you've reported from there extensively, and how does it compare to the last time you were there?
Yeah, well, any humanitarian today will tell you that we're really at the worst we've ever been at in Gaza. That's because of multiple reasons, because of the ongoing relentless bombardments. It's because people who are starved and try to get their hands on aid are being shot at. It's because of increasing hunger. And as temperatures increase, there's also a dire need for better access to water. Access to clean water is very, very limited. And so what we have been seeing in UNICEF is a pretty shocking increase in malnutrition amongst children under 5, as well as amongst women who are breastfeeding and women who are pregnant. Last month alone, in May alone, over 5,000 children were diagnosed with malnutrition. And malnutrition is very dangerous for these little ones. It's not just about low weight, it's also about growth impairment, stunting, that these little ones risk, and that is hard to recover from. So it's absolutely critical that humanitarian organizations are allowed to do their job, but also that Gaza is opened up to the outside world, that supplies that are on the outside waiting to go in, supplies from the UN system, supplies from NGOs, that they can actually enter Gaza at scale. We need a mass influx of life-saving aid and of commercial products as well to save lives. There's many ways that you can die in Gaza today, and many of these deaths are preventable.
And so many of them now being asked to move elsewhere in the territory, and our reporter there was saying that these journeys can take up to 10 hours. What sort of effect does that have on a person who is already starved of food, short of food, and in many cases, as you say, suffering from malnutrition?
I mean, for starters, the Gaza Strip is an incredibly small patch of land that has well over 2 million inhabitants. So that's really important to remember, that we're talking about an incredibly tiny territory. As of today, end of June, 82% of that territory is covered by displacement orders or has been designated as so-called military zones, meaning that people are told to leave. So we have over 2 million people who are crammed together in a minuscule area that is left to them. And even in that area, we actually see tents being bombed. Now, families have lost everything. They've lost their homes, they've lost their belongings. Many families have been displaced, not just once, but several times. And so these families are extremely vulnerable. There's thousands of families who don't have a place to stay. There's also a lack of what we call shelter materials. So there's a lack of tents, a lack of tarpaulins, who haven't been able to enter the Gaza Strip for a while. And that means that families are exposed to the elements. They're under the burning sun with very limited access to the basics they need to survive. It is an extremely critical situation, and this relentless displacement is definitely adding to the deep suffering of Palestinian children and their parents.
And when food and aid does get in, how much of it gets in, and how often does that happen?
So from the UN system, UNICEF is among those agencies who are now allowed since May 19th to bring supplies in. So that is something that we welcome. But unfortunately, we're not allowed to bring in aid at scale, which is what Gaza needs. Gaza needs a mass influx of supplies. Only select items and limited quantities are currently allowed to enter the Gaza Strip. So while we have been able to resume some of our distributions. They're vastly insufficient to meet really the enormous needs of people inside Gaza. This is woefully inadequate. This is not going to be able to save lives at scale. And today we talk about scale because so many people are at risk. The entire population of the Gaza Strip is hungry. There's a real risk of starvation and of famine if supplies aren't allowed into Gaza.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Apologies there for the breakup in the sound. We appreciate you talking to us about all of that. Rosalia Bollen, thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.